When you're at work, you are an actor. You're acting all the time because you're constantly performing. Organizational theory is all about performance, right? Performance reviews.
Oh my God. That's genius.
The most powerful theater is when the actors aren't actually talking. They're in those moments of silence.
You say, when language doesn't feel safe, art and play can be incredibly helpful.
Humans, like all the large primates, are sensing for threat and sensing for safety. I'm Shoshana Simons, and my definition of belonging is the fulfillment of the longing to be fully accepted.
Welcome to the studio, Shoshana Simons. It is such an honor to have you. You and I go so far back. We have so much history. You have been teaching at CIIS, California Institute of Integral Studies, for...
I'm entering into my 18th year.
You are a therapist?
I'm a drama therapist by training, but I don't practice as a therapist anymore, but I do practice as a coach.
And you were the head of Drama Arts Therapy.
I was the chair of Expressive Arts Therapy program for 13 years.
At CIIS?
Yeah.
We're going to really focus on nonverbal communication today and the mastery around nonverbal communication and why nonverbal communication is so essential, because according to Peter Drucker, we are never not communicating. Right? In fact, he says that communication is what is not being said. Mm-hmm. Albert Morabian talks extensively about his work around what he found is that only 7% of communication are the words that we use. 93% is nonverbal. What comes up for you when I share that?
I was just teaching family therapy, family dynamics over the weekend for CIIS, my expressive arts class. And this is what we were talking about. One of the foundational principles of family therapy, systemic family therapy, is one cannot not communicate. And what I had the students do, I have them, these concepts, what do they even mean? How do you break them down into something meaningful that students can understand? So I put them into little small groups to digest these theoretical ideas, and then they have to create a performance to demonstrate them back without really talking about the issue.
Wow.
And this small group broke up and came back with this little performance of a family around the dinner table, and each of the members of the family's body language, right? Mm-hmm. They didn't speak. It was like they didn't speak verbally. But we learned so much about what was going on by watching them. And in the debrief after, it was really interesting to talk that through. And it made me think about theater. And the most powerful theater is when the actors aren't actually talking. They're in those moments of silence when you're seeing it, when you're showing don't tell in the theatrical sense. You're showing what's going on. And you're reading what's going on in the nonverbal field that and it's often it's what's left out, I think, in leadership training.
100%.
It's so verbal oriented. It's so talk and verbiage. Do this, do that, don't do this. Communicate better, like as if that's actually about the dialogue.
And so much of what is being communicated verbally isn't actually about the words. It's the prosody behind the words, right? And so prosody, the definition of prosody is, pace, pitch, inflection, cadence. And a perfect example of prosody is saying the same word 3 times and having completely different meanings. I actually bring this into my own leadership training, and I'm going to give an example right now, which is, I'm going to use the word okay. I'm going to say okay 3 different times, and you will know exactly what I'm saying, and they will be completely different things. So here we go. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? You know exactly what I'm
Mhm.
communicating with
Right.
each of those.
It's everything.
It's everything.
But I didn't say that. Right. That's what.
Right.
Start getting into those.
I mean, so much is coming up for me now, because now this explains exactly how belonging is communicated in families, right? And if we are not mindful about how we're showing up in our communication, we are going to either harm a nervous system or we are going to heal a nervous system.
And the nervous system is this, not this, as far from my point of view.
Tell them what you're doing for those who are watching, for those who are listening.
For those who are listening, I'm doing a circle of energy really between Rajkumari and myself. I'm offering an energetic circle. I'm reaching out towards them, back in towards myself in a circle, rather than just we are not. There's no such thing as an individual. There is only ever relational field. That includes human beings and way more than that.
There's so many incredible quotes here that were captured by my producer during your prep call. The first one here is, communication is an interactive cycle between two people's nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
This is ingenious. I love this one. When language doesn't feel safe, art and play can be incredibly helpful. In family therapy, for example, switching to an arts-based activity can totally shift a dynamic. Example, pick up a card and that reflects how you feel right now. You say, I find it helpful to listen to language very literally, just as you were doing. If someone says, I'm feeling stuck, do they need to move their body? If someone says, I can't hear you, do they need to open up their auditory senses? Can you give us more examples of that?
So there are many different languages. And in expressive arts therapy, or these multiple modes of expression, we move. The art is really about facilitating a client or a group of clients, or anyone we're engaging with, in switching between modes of expression, depending on what they are trying to express. So the training is about being sensitive to the form, to the appropriate form of expression at any given moment. It's not about being an artist. You don't have to be an artist. But in our dominant culture, these different modes of expression are not privileged. The verbal is privileged, like where we started. The verbal is what we're paying attention to. But if we're paying attention to language, we're always talking in metaphor. That's what humans do. We are having to say, this is like this. We're always making metaphor. So if you're saying I'm stuck, well, what does that even mean? It's like, what images come to mind of being stuck? Or I feel I can't move right now. I'm feeling, like that's what it feels like. I'm stuck. I can't move. I don't know where to turn. All of these things are metaphors. So an example of doing that in therapeutic work might be, let's have you inviting the person to get up and just start turning. Put into your body that feeling that I don't know where to turn, and see what comes through. So and that might actually move a person into the need to go into a different modality entirely as well.
Moving from movement, a somatic state, into a journaling state, or into a dance state, or into a singing state, or into a walking state, or into a painting state, or
but you're really being guided entirely by the client, listening to them.
So interesting. Let's take what you just said right now and reappropriate it back into a workplace dynamic. I'm in a meeting. I just heard someone say on a Zoom call, and we're talking about a project and the milestones for this project. And someone says, I'm feeling really stuck right now. I'm not getting any support cross-functionally, and I don't know where to turn to. The last thing I want to do is to get them to stand up and start turning.
Right. And so they won't.
And they won't anyway, because there'll be too much.
So I might have them do something fun and light, but doable. That's like a team, like an icebreakery type of game that helps them to get unstuck. Like It might be, how about us doing a story about being stuck? But we're going to build it one word at a time. Each person in the team will add one word. So we'll just start with once upon a time. Each person adds a word about being stuck. Let's just stay right there. Let's just do that and see what happens and have fun with it.
So where I'm finding a lot of resistance right now is we also have 30 minutes on the clock.
Mm-hmm.
We have to get through our agenda, and we have to figure out what we're doing.
That's exactly what I would hear. Excuse me, we've only got 30 minutes on our agenda. Why are we playing this game? This again is the training. Right? You're laughing. That's part of it. Let's just get down to business. We got 30 minutes, everyone. Hey, it's like the game. It's all a game. So you just have to be part of the game. It's okay. Yeah. Well, here's my experience. So-and-so, you bring in some organizational theorists like you did. Well, that's a really good point. You've only got 30 minutes. Peter Drucker says taking 2 minutes to focus on loosening up at the beginning of the meeting will earn you back 15 minutes in productivity.
That's fucking genius, because I just did an offsite this week, and as I was preparing to facilitate this offsite, and I was consulting with a couple of peers, one of the things that we talked about was how crucial it is to set the container up for safety.
Totally.
In order to hold, model, and sustain regulated nervous systems.
Absolutely.
As we move into conflict.
Yes.
Otherwise, we will inevitably move into conflict with a dysregulated nervous system.
Exactly. And it's whether Peter Drucker said it or not, this does happen to be the case, and there is a lot of evidence of this. So working with the nervous system, working with polyvagal theory, the fact is level 1 is a social engagement system, right? Neuroception. Is there a neuroception of safety? Am I safe? And in those meetings on Zoom in particular, where everyone's in their own space, predict that that's the question that's on everyone's mind, and do something and be confident in your offer of asking them to do something to arrive and feel safe.
You are offering an antidote to trauma in the workplace.
Because it's going to be there. We assume it's there.
Number one thing that is eradicated by trauma is play and then joy. And what you're proposing inadvertently is the healing of trauma through play, creativity, and expression.
Yes, it's trauma, and I think it's even taking out the concept of trauma, it's just being a primate. Trauma or not trauma, humans, like all the large primates, are sensing for threat and sensing for safety, regardless of trauma. We're always anticipating what's smelling for threat, actually listening for threat. All of our senses are geared towards threat.
Yeah, you say here, the brain is wired to respond to threat. If we're not conscious on how we engage other people, we often communicate in ways, and this is really interesting, we often communicate in ways that build their threat response and raise their defenses. And that gets in the way of connecting and truly being in relationship.
Right. And that takes us back to your initial offering about prosody. So
prosody or prosody, Shoshana?
Prosody. You say prosody, I say prosody.
But this is so interesting, because what you're actually advocating for in the most simple sense and yet so concrete is DEIB plus initiatives. This is the foundation of DEIB plus.
It really is.
If we are not aware of the intentionality and the nuance of the ways in which we're communicating, from the myriad of spectrum of communication styles, from showing up to meetings, to sitting in our chairs, to starting off with opening remarks and what those opening remarks contain and what they don't contain. How we are silencing voices because we have anxiety or we're excited or we're just plain annoyed. How we look down when someone's talking on a Zoom call and communicating that we're not interested when we're actually responding to a fire situation, but we haven't explicitly stated that. So the person who's speaking actually feels completely shamed and completely invaluable. And that their contribution doesn't even matter. I mean, this is...
It's all implicitly going on. Yeah. All that's implicit communication.
How do we do this and get work done?
This is the work. The work will be done because we pay attention to this.
You did not hesitate on that response.
No, because it's my lived experience.
Talk more about that.
Well, it's interesting timing because I shared with you that I'm retiring from CIIS after 18 years. And for the beauty and honor of leading the Expressive Arts Therapy program for all those years, and the gift of CIIS, which has a lot of latitude. It's such an unusual institution that has an explicitly spiritual mission, explicitly is incorporating the cutting edge theories around somatics and expressive arts into our teaching. It's given me a lot of leeway. And the way that I set up the Expressive Arts Therapy program as a leader was to think of ourselves as an ensemble. That I wanted to use a performance metaphor and an arts-based metaphor when I was, being a program chair of a counseling program. I came into the program and they were counseling programs, counselor training programs are often fixated on reproducing family dynamics and using the metaphor of a family. And metaphors are really important. If we use a metaphor of the family in training family therapists or counselors, the chances are is we're going to replicate family dynamics in our organization, in our students. And I was seeing that coming in.
100%.
So I'm like, no, we're going to have the metaphor of the ensemble, which means every person has a unique contribution to the whole. We each play our unique part. We're all different from each other.
I love that.
Danielle Drake, my colleague, who you've met and know, Dr. Danielle, shout out to her, who's now the Dean of Faculty Development for CIIS Diversity and Equity and Inclusion. Amazing. She coined the term, I don't know, but together we do. And that's our byline. And my experience over all these years, we have a very stable faculty. People don't want to leave teaching for this place. We've gone through COVID together. We've gone through fires together. We've taken the program online before COVID ever came in. We are all, because we have such powerfully smooth, anticipatory empathy for one another, we don't even know we're working half the time.
Smooth, anticipatory empathy.
Yeah. We anticipate each other's these improvisational skills that are built into how we function as a team, as an ensemble. It's more than a team. The ensemble idea is we are all different and we all have a unique role. Let's honor all of our differences and see that they're all incredible resources for the whole. And of course, systems theory, which is what we're based in, filters out, right? If we are this loving, caring, joyful, excited, intelligent team, then our students are going to feel that. We don't have to do anything. They feel that. This is who they're becoming too. They're part of an ensemble.
But this makes so much sense because if you envision, I just did that visually for myself while you were talking. I took a client, I put their clients in the middle, then I put the organization, the employees, the workforce around the clients. And then I put the SLT, the senior leadership, the C-suite team around everyone else. And then I put them infighting.
Right.
So if they're infighting, that circle is going to dissolve really quickly.
Right.
But if there's an integrated team
Yes.
that is able to make high quality decisions during high friction times,
Right.
then there becomes this clear comfort around reliability, predictability, that I can rely not on the economic times or the market.
Because you certainly can't rely on that.
But what I can rely on is the commitment to emotional maturity and the smooth anticipatory empathy that continues to bind the integrated team together.
You. Exactly. Right. I have your back. Do you feel I have your back?
So that's a great segue into talking about calcified relationships and accountability and feeling stuck. You say here, when a relationship feels calcified or stuck in usual patterns, the biggest obstacle is getting the buy-in for play. That's actually really true. This helps people break free of behaviors that they're attached to. Activities like breaking the mold. If your experience is a metaphor, what would it be? Play it out. By moving your body, something starts to shift. It can be frightening because those behaviors maintain homeostasis. Say more about this.
This is all the stuff I've been teaching this last weekend, so it's so fresh right now, homeostasis and the great comfort in uncomfortable, familiar patterns. You know how people come into work and they love to complain? We love to complain. There's a ritual of complaint, right?
It also secretes dopamine.
It secretes dopamine. It's like the paradox of this. I love to complain, right? We love to gossip. And because there's a comfort. There's a comfort in the old slippers that have got holes in them. But there's also, at some point, you've got to actually, they're going to wear out. You're going to have to get new slippers. Life is like that. Something will happen to tip the balance. So it's comfortable. The discomfort is comfortable till something else enters. This is where the theatrical metaphors are also really important, right? There's always got to be a forward movement in the plot. And folks, if we'll get bored, humans get bored without novelty, without stimulation. And we're not doing our best work if we're working in a company that's about our creativity, about creation, about generativity. The enemy of creativity and generation is exactly the ways our brains are patterned towards stasis and homeostasis. We want to go back to what's familiar. That feels comfortable and safe. The paradox is you're not going to be able to create from the place of homeostasis, from that beautiful, familiar old pair of slippers is not going to be your place of creativity. It's going to be your place of comfort. But that's not the place of generativity. It's back to that idea of when you feel someone has your back, when there's yes and my team are going to receive my offers. They're going to say yes, even if it's outlandish. Then something new can come from this. But another great principle of systems theory is chaos precedes change. You have to create the conditions, and it's where people need consultants or, outsiders, however that's constructed, outsiders from teams, different perspectives to come in and hold the space so that organizational actors, people, that is, in organizations can take risks, can be encouraged to take risks, to drop off the cliff.
To make mistakes.
Because it's not a mistake. You're not going to be able to do anything new if you don't take a risk. And it might work and it might not, but something new will happen.
This a really great scene with Jerry Seinfeld in comedians in cars getting coffee.
Yeah.
And they're not in a car in this scene. They actually go to a diner. But he's with someone. I don't remember who he's with. And Jerry Seinfeld says, okay, imagine you're the creative director for the Cirque du Soleil, and the only thing you can say is yes to any suggestion that comes. And so this other comedian who's sitting across the table from him is like, what if there are elephants with ball bearings that fly in and hit people in the head? And then all you have to say is yes. And every suggestion becomes a yes, right?
Right.
And even though we might not go with that, it's welcomed, it's invited, it's included. it's communicated, going back to our communication, that you're wanted, you're welcome,
That's right.
you matter. What this tells me is that we are our own creative directors.
Mm-mm.
And how do we start to say yes and to everything in life?
I agree. We are our own creative directors, and we are not. Because we are relational. So we have the potential to be our own creative directors if we are received. It's I am because we are. It's Dan Siegel's we. There is no I. There is no you. There's we. And we are interacting and co-creating the next moment and the next moment and the next moment.
Say more about this Daniel Siegel we in neurobiology.
NWE, we. He calls it
MWE, what is that?
we, me and you. It's me and we together. I am not me. There is no we without me and me. So yes, I am my creative director. You are your creative director. And the we is something exponentially more than two individuals. It's even more than the I, thou. It's even more than the space in between. The we is a responsive, mutually reinforcing, interacting force field that creates all kinds of indeterminate things, events that happen beyond the we. I mean, look how much has happened. We could go back and look at what were the effects of that interview in the arts refracting team at CIIS all those years ago. What were the effects on the we, on your life, on my life, on our lives? What were the effects of you leaving Facebook? What were the effects on your father and your relationship? What were the effects on what you went to do next? What were the effects on me? What were the effects on every one of our students? What were the we effects on everyone that they touched? It's exponential.
This isn't wrong. I say this because I had a huge epiphany this week. I was in a relationship with someone for 8 years very recently that ended in 2020, where this person refused to do any of the emotional labor in the relationship. And as I was in discussion with the person I'm dating now, I was being told that by this new person that I do my own emotional work really well. I don't bring it into the relationship and ask my partner to do the work. I'm able to hold my own. And then that gives the we an opportunity to really flourish. But I hadn't made the connection that because I had spent 8 years all alone in a we, doing all of the emotional labor and all of the emotional work, that I learned to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And that was a big aha moment for me.
Right. It didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
It came out of everywhere.
Yeah.
And it's kind of arbitrary how we even got to the everywhere. You know, it's like there's so much that we're experiencing so much, and then we're creating a story about what happened. And there are many possible stories we could tell, but we're selecting particular stories all the time. And the stories that we're telling, the wisdom of this, polyvagal work again, and I think this is so relevant for the workplace. One of the gems from Deb Dana, Deb Dana's work.
Of course.
Right. So one of her gems is the story at any given moment is just the story of where our nervous system is at that given moment.
Absolutely.
And the work that I've become really interested in around that relates to like diversity and social justice issues, because those stories are not just stories. The story of our nervous system at any given moment is completely inextricably related to the relational field and power dynamics.
Well, speaking of power dynamics, let's go there. You talk about accountability. You say that we teach drama therapy at organizations as a way to address power dynamics. Power is the elephant in the room. Boy, is it ever. How do we address it through play? When you play with it, you put the human back in the body.
Power dynamics, drama therapy, and
In
organization.
Yeah.
It's all about that, right? I mean, coming in as a drama therapist to an organization, I have to put on my director hat, but why can't the organizational actors, and I talk about organizational actors, I'm using that language because it is kind of how I think. Everyone's acting. When you're at work, you are an actor. You're acting all the time because you're constantly performing. Organizational theory is all about performance, right? Performance reviews.
Oh my God. That's genius.
No, not really, but
we should do some coaching on that. That's genius.
What are we doing every time we're giving someone a performance review? How are we inviting people to be authentic if they're performers, if they're performing? How can you really be authentic in a context where you're being watched and surveyed, and particularly in the US, and you're getting paid according to how you're performing? And now we're actually disciplining people for not being sufficiently empathic. It's like, fuck. It's like a minefield. So like the power dynamic precedes our even arriving at work. It's in the structure. It's in the very structure of the organizational procedures, the hierarchies, the non-hierarchies, all of that. It's like the stage set, right? Who sits where? I know you want to say something. I'm like running with the stage set metaphor.
This is so great.
Right?
What's the antidote? Is it play? Is it
play? I mean, and again, depends on the group.
Because that's where I access my authenticity is in that play.
Right.
That's where I access my body in that moment because that's play.
It's play. And you always want to keep people engaged, right? So people do feel, if you're coming in to do this work in the organizational context with folks, they have a heightened awareness that everyone's watching everyone else because they're performing. They're at work performing. It's different than when they go into therapy, when they have a different nervous system response. Oh, I'm speaking to my therapist. The act that goes on in therapy is very different than the act, and it might be the same actor, but it's a different role. If I'm going to work and I'm in, Rajkumari's coming in to do, opening ourselves to empathy session with us is going to be different than if I saw Rajkumari in therapy. I'm going to access a different story because my nervous system is going to be in a different place. I'm going to be in unconditional positive regard with Rajkumari in either place, but in place A, in my workplace, I'm going to be in self-surveillance mode because I'm with my workmates. I'm in a conundrum.
Wait a second. That means just by what you said right now, I am literally in fight, flight, freeze mode at work based on my performance because of the hypervigilance.
Yeah.
And then when I leave that performance state and I go to therapy, I'm with my friends, I'm with my partner, my puppy, my cat, I am in my authentic state and my nervous system relaxes for the first time all day. And needs to then recover all night long to get up and perform again the next day.
Yeah.
I don't even know where to go in this conversation right now. I'm kind of blown away.
Go to your nervous system. Me too.
It brings up such a moment of conformity and helplessness.
This was the subject of my doctorate. I learned a lot of really interesting things about the dynamics of power and control, including questions of who can speak what, where, and when. When will folks be able to be authentic? What are the conditions that allow for that? And it's all about the stuff we're talking about. What would be the prep, the pre-event, the warm-up, all the things I know from actually being expressive arts therapist, drama therapist. How do you relax people's nervous systems so that they feel safe enough to show up? Who should be in the room and who really should not be in the room? People have to feel safe in the space. So being very mindful about which colleagues need to be with which colleagues at any given time.
It's like planning a dinner party.
Yes, it is. It's like planning a dinner party. Right. Who should sit next to whom? Who should never sit next to each other?
Who needs to be invited to the dinner party?
Who needs to be invited, right?
Okay, let's switch gears because we are running out of time and I don't want to let you go. I'm going to read out some leadership scenarios. These are actual leadership scenarios. And what we're going to do here is see how these ideas play out in action, and how we figure out the best way to respond in each situation. So we're going to put you on the spot here. So here we go. We'll set the scene. I'm going to read this verbatim here.
Okay.
In a recent all-hands meeting, we opened for a Q&A, and it took several minutes before anyone raised their hand to ask a question. Look at she's already nodding, smiling, and eye rolling. The silence was very uncomfortable, and I noticed many employees avoiding eye contact and fidgeting. I found it challenging to find a way to invite people to participate. Okay, first one right out of the gate. What do you got?
Well, you're noticing. That's my first thought.
So yay.
Good for you. You're noticing.
Wow.
What is happening in your nervous system? What are the effects of this noticing upon you? What would you need if you were sitting in their seat?
I would need acknowledgement of the discomfort in the room. I would need acknowledgement for that discomfort to be called out and say, I know that this might be a really difficult moment for everyone. I know we just went through layoffs. We just went through a reorg. We just lost someone we cared very deeply about. The market just tanked, whatever that is, right? Our project failed. I know this is really uncomfortable. Our stock plummeted.
Right.
I know this is really, really a difficult moment right now. And I would name that difficulty, and then I would invite people to just connect with themselves a bit more, take a breath, and allow whatever thoughts or emotions that they're witnessing within them come forward, and just start from that place. Just start from naming that place.
Right. So the first step is you in that situation, and you're you, not necessarily the person who's having this as an issue, because probably you would do that, is you would have to be vulnerable to yourself. You would have to have a practice of actually checking in with yourself.
Wow.
That is attunement. What am I experiencing here as I sit? You'd have to be able to befriend your own discomfort.
Wow.
I see that on your face, talking about nonverbals.
That's what I teach every day with my clients. The expressionless CEO. Oh my God. I have so many comments about that one all of a sudden. Okay, I'm going to read this scene for you. While pitching a new initiative to our CEO, I noticed she was completely rigid and without expression. She had no verbal objections that I found, but it was very difficult to continue presenting with confidence.
That's a hard one.
What would you do? Would you call out the CEO and say, hey, I'm noticing that you're not?
No.
Okay, so how would I?
I wouldn't, because I'm being attentive to the power dynamic.
Yeah.
And they are the CEO. And let's just say they're a human. Stonewalling is a brain under threat. That is what's happening. Let's just take the title away from the person for a minute and just go human. That person is a brain under threat. It doesn't matter that they're the CEO. In fact, maybe it's worse. Like they're in their own positionality. Maybe they're deer in the headlights. Maybe they feel completely out of their depth. We don't know. But what we do know is their brain is under threat. So you have to do something to help their brain get calm down. Engage them in some other way.
But not if they don't show up again, if they leave the room.
They might leave the room. And in which case, I might go to them outside the room and have a one-on-one. But I wouldn't do anything in front of the team because it's going to humiliate them. And it might just intensify the stonewalling. Okay,
we're going to go on to the third scene. I really want to try to get here. Okay, so now this is a scenario where there's mixed messages. I shared positive feedback with an employee, and they revealed to me at the end that they doubted I was being sincere and felt actually demoralized.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
I asked why that was so, and they said it was because my arms were crossed. I wasn't aware of this and felt my positive feedback was genuine. What would you say there? Okay,
Really?
you're right. Oh, that's all I got to say. So for those who are listening, I'm actually feeling really uncomfortable because Shoshana has crossed her arms and I want to move on to the next scenario.
I feel like I'm being really genuine.
Yeah, I mean, point well made. Point well made. No, come on back. Don't pull away. Shoshana is now sitting further away from me in the chair. Oh my goodness. Okay, so this is one, power in conflict. A CEO is reviewing key performance initiatives with her executive team on a weekly Zoom call, and suddenly a heated disagreement took place between two executives. Desperate to try to resolve the conflict and lighten the mood, she introduced a playful activity, but it was not received. One of the executives immediately left the call, and the tension was palpable. What would you do
Take
here?
a time out.
Take a time out.
Reschedule this.
Circle back to the one who left.
Yep. Circle back to the one who left.
Check in with them.
Check in with them, but reschedule it and be sure at the beginning when the next time you meet that each person's nervous system is calm.
And so
and how will they know? Use it as a coachable moment to debrief that. What was happening in each of your nervous systems, not between you. We want to get back to create some space. You got triggered. This is what I observed. This is what I noticed. We're not going to go for the content. What was going on for each of you in each of your bodies?
Yeah.
Just pull it all the way back.
This is fantastic. This is actually what I did this week. Okay, great. And then the last one, calcified team dynamics. In team meetings, my team often reverts back to familiar roles. A few people try to dominate while a few others remain silent. We've heard that a lot, seen that a lot. These seem like stuck behaviors, but I'm not sure how to break them without putting people on the spot. What do you recommend here?
Things that I would do with when I was training elementary school kids. Give them response cards. Each person has two whatever, how many you decide in advance. You get 2 cards. 2 times you're allowed to speak. It's a behavioral thing, but it takes everyone off the spot.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Have you actually done this with adults?
I do it in class. I've done it in teaching. Yeah. When you've got dominators in the class, the people that always speak and those that never do. Everyone's got. You can have 2 turns to speak. Everyone needs to use their 2 turns.
How would you adapt?
I would say it ahead of time. I would say we're working with with group dynamics, and we really want to folks that are noticing that there are folks that don't speak very often, and I'm sure you've got great ideas, and we really want to be able to bring them into the space. We really want to encourage hearing from everyone. And there are folks of you who are really great at sharing your ideas and would love you to have a little bit more thinking time.
Speaking of that, I was just on a call this morning with a very senior leader at a very big company. And she said, yeah, how can we feed 2 birds with a scone? I thought that was so awesome.
I love it.
I don't want this conversation to end at all. What do you hope for organizations in the future in how they hold language and nonverbal communication with each other?
If I could wave a magic wand, there would be a lived and demonstrated understanding that language is verbal language is just one modality among many. Learn how to use these other languages, learn how to optimize them. Find out who among your employees is an artist, has an arts practice, who decorates their house, who does feng shui. Think about all the resources that people have that they'd leave at the door, and not the usual ones you're talking about because you're mandated to think about them, like all of your required diversity things that you're checking the box. I'm being rude now. You can edit this out. I'm just putting it in there. It's like so many things are rote. But if you really have the passion for being a successful organization, put that in the middle and think about all the resources people have that they're not able to bring into the organization, but are really invaluable. Are they jewelry makers? Do they sing their kids to sleep? Are they songwriters? Are they good at first aid? I mean, all the things that are resources and are different kinds of languages and skills that people have.
It's almost like, how can we start to have weekly show and tells with each other?
Yes, weekly show and tell. What a great idea.
I think I might do that with my clients.
I love that.
Yeah.
Right.
It's so inspiring. Shoshana, what an incredible honor to have you on the show. Thank you so much for your perspicacity, your insight, your wisdom, your brilliance. I could continue to talk for hours, and I hope I do.
Thank you. It's been really a pleasure to talk to you, to dialogue with you, to think with you, to play with you.